All right. Welcome everybody to your Voces webinar tonight. We are going to be listening to Erica Poplinski-Burge. I have a feeling that most of you probably already know who she is, but in case you don't, Erica has taught Spanish for 18 years from every age from pre-kindergarten to 8th grade. Right now, she is a curriculum manager at Voces Digital, and she's also a teacher trainer for us. She loves to explore the connection between neuroscience and language acquisition. She has done a ton of presentations, which is probably how you already know her, including Central States, ACTFL, MIWLA, Express Fluency, IFLT, and many more. She also helps to organize Mitten CI and CI Midwest. And she was the 2020 Teacher of the Year. So lots of credentials coming our way, and she's got so much to tell you tonight. So Erica, go ahead and you can get started.
Hooray! So thank you so much for giving me your very valuable time. I know, and I should also say thank you, Melissa. Sorry, that coffee is starting to kick in. I know how valuable your time is, and I hope that I can make this evening valuable for you. We are going to talk a very important topic, which is teacher wellness and what burnout is and how we can avoid it, and it applies to all human beings. Melissa already told you all of this, but I mainly just throw it up there so you know that I'm not just making this stuff up off the top of my head. I have been in the classroom, I have been burned out in the classroom, and I have recovered. So I am going to share with you kind of my journey and what years and years of research and lots of talking to doctors and nutritionists has taught me about how I can take charge of my own health. You will notice on this large list of some of my accomplishments that nowhere does it say doctor or nutritionist. I am not an official doctor or a nutritionist, so that's my disclaimer. Obviously, before you take any wellness steps, you may want to talk about it with your doctor, but these wellness steps are well researched and have made huge impacts in my own health and the health of many of my friends and family. And so I am so excited to share them with you. And I hope that you can take away at least one thing to continue to improve your wellness as we go. I am also a mom to 3. So like many of you, yes, those are my little babies. I am right in the thick of it with being a full-time person and having little kids and just trying to have to do all the things. Now, I'm going to start out with this meme because we all know that I'm not going to be able to fix all of the reasons that teachers are getting burned out tonight. However, what I want to do is give you some tools so you can start to take back some of your own health so we don't have to be waiting around for other people to fix it for us, because we all know that's not going to happen anytime soon. And next to that funny meme, a more serious one. We need to stop glamorizing overworking, please. The absence of sleep, good diet, exercise, relaxation, and time with friends and family is not something to be applauded. Too many people wear their burnout as a badge of honor, and it needs to change. And this was me for many years. I was always like, I can do it, I can do it, I can do it. I can push myself to do one more thing. And I pushed myself right to being very, very sick. And it was all because of stress and burnout. And I'm hoping that I can help you avoid the same thing or help you start to recover from it if you've already wandered down that path. So we're going to look at some teacher statistics. 60% of teachers report daily job stress. Enrollment in teacher prep programs has dropped by 1/3 from 2008 to 2019. 45% of educators reported being dissatisfied with their jobs in 2020, and 79% of educators in 2022. So the numbers are going up. More than half of all public schools were understaffed at the start of the 2022-2023 school year. Obviously, there are problems, and we need to take care of ourselves if we're going to start to make a dent in these problems. Excuse the slightly dirty refrigerator magnet, but this used to kind of be my motto. You can't scare me. I'm a teacher. I can do it. However, having that motto and always pushing myself to do more and more and more and more took major tolls on my health, to the point where I was having migraines almost every day of the week. I was losing my vision. I was having to take medicine that would either leave me wiped out or laying next to the toilet getting sick if I didn't take the medicine. And this went on and on for years. I tried everything you could think of, from acupuncture, acupressure, all the preventative medicines, certain special diets, anything my doctor said, try it, I tried. To the point where at my late 20s, my doctors were suggesting that I go on disability. Now, if you know me and you know that I am a research person, and going on disability did not seem like something I wanted to do in my late 20s. And so I started to do some heavy research. And I kind of figured out the key components to improving my health. And I found that those components are pretty tied to student learning outcomes. If we exhaust ourselves, if we take every drop from ourselves to give and give more, and we're not letting ourselves refill, we're not giving our students our best selves either. And so I'm going to try and use that to convince you to take care of yourself too, as we go, with many action steps. So a little bit about the brain. And if you've been to my presentations, you know I can almost never not talk about the brain at least a little bit. In your brain, you have neurons and you have axons. And what happens when you do anything is a neuron, or more likely a group of neurons, sends signals along the axon to another neurons. And that causes you to do everything from turning your head to recognize a sound, recalling someone's face, monitoring your class. All of these things happen very quickly at the same time. Now, when you see someone doing something, the same neurons that would fire in your head if you were doing it also fire. That's why if you're watching a sports game that you're really into and you see someone get injured, you kind of twinge in your own body. Or if you're watching a scary movie and the monster is sneaking up on the protagonist, you feel the hairs in the back of your neck stand up. Those are mirror neurons. And so my takeaway from this is, if we completely exhaust ourselves to the point where we cannot go and get excited about our lessons and happy to see our our students, if we're not happy to see our students, I was looking at all of your beautiful faces and said teachers, then we're not giving the best to our students. Because if we are mirroring our exhaustion, because we can't help it because we're human, they're going to mirror that back to us. Our classes are going to kind of mirror what we give to them. So I want to give you a chance to experience mirror neurons right now. I'm going to show you a couple of different pictures, and I just want you to notice where you feel when you feel them and try to guess how this person is feeling. Does he want the broccoli? Yes or no? And you can either do thumbs down or you can type it in the chat, whatever is most convenient for you. And the next one is even better. Notice how your face feels. How many of you felt your face crunch up a little bit? Those are mirror neurons working. Again, don't look for this next slide because it's going to make you feel a little bit of the height feeling. And especially if your mirror neurons are strong, because strong mirror neurons will make you feel this more. Yes. Now, if you watch that, and I'm stopping the height video now, so if you're scared of heights, you can look again. If you watch that and you felt that tension, that's mirror neurons you're feeling. So when we are exhausted, when we are not at our best, our students, their brains reflect that back to us. Another important thing to know about when it comes to taking care of yourself is our amygdala. It is in charge of our freeze, fight, or flight reaction. When it's activated, new sensory information cannot pass through it to access the memory and association circuits. Social pain and physical pain actually activate the same centers in the brain. When we don't feel like we belong or are in a state of stress or afraid of being wrong, we can't learn as well. So what they actually did was they did this study where they had one person playing ball with two imaginary participants. So it was two virtual participants and a real person. And at first, the three of them threw the ball back and forth equally. But what happened after time is the two virtual, the computer started ignoring the real person, and they measured their pain response, the real person's response to being rejected. And what they found that taking ibuprofen dulled the pain response to being rejected. That's because the only difference in our brains between physical pain and emotional pain is that with physical pain, a second part of our brain lights up to tell us where in our body we hurt. But the part of our brain that tells us how much we hurt, if it's a little bit of hurt or a lot of hurt, it's the same. Whether it's the emotional pain of having your friends reject you or the physical pain of having someone step on your foot. So what that means is when we don't feel like we belong, when our students don't feel like they belong, then we can't learn as well, and neither can they. And it's a real thing in our brain. You know, that whole sticks and stones don't break my bones, but words will never hurt them. That's not true. Words hurt us. This is called the affective filter by Dr. Stephen Krashen, and it's defined as a period of an emotional state of stress in students and teachers during which we are not responsive to learning and storing new information. And so when we aren't feeling good during our classes, our students are not feeling good either. And that is Dr. Krashen, and I totally waited in a long selfie line to get that picture, and it was worth it. I'm a big fangirl. On the flip side of that, when we are happy, positive motivation impacts brain metabolism, conduction of nerve impulses through the memory areas, and the release of neurotransmitters that increase executive function and attention. In other words, dopamine, which we release when we are happy, helps the brain learn more and retain it better. So being happy, being well rested actually makes us better teachers. All right, so I told you the story. I was really, really sick. I was on the verge of disability. My doctors were thinking there was nothing else to try. And I started to do my research. And I mentioned this in the beginning, but I had both Spanish and science as my undergrads. And then I did some neuroscience with my postmaster's work. But in one of my upper level biology classes, the teacher was talking to us and she said, everyone thinks that plants, this was a biology of plants class, that plants, they don't have a green thumb. They can't make plants grow. But what they're really not doing is they're not replicating the plant's natural environment. Plants want to grow. And when they replicate their natural environments, they're healthier. And that got me thinking that the same thing works with the animals in zoos. When you go to a zoo where the animals are in little tiny cages, they're not very happy and they're not very healthy. But when you go to a zoo where they have a whole spread and it mimics their natural environment and they can eat more naturally, the animals are a lot healthier and happier. We are animals. We're connected to the planet too. And so what I started doing when I had no other choices was looking at what can I do to put myself in the most natural state possible. And that was where I was able to find my health again. So healthy means stress management and community, movement, nutrition, and sleep. Now, I know that seems very simple, but I'm going to give you all of the science that goes behind it and all of the specific things underneath each that you can do to improve your own health. Now, for many years, I feel that our culture has kind of downplayed stress. It's no big deal. It's okay. But stress has such huge impacts on our health. And I'm going to let this HBO little trailer show you a little bit about that. This documentary is on HBO. It's called One Nation Under Stress. If you have it, I highly recommend it. But this is just a little taste of how serious stress is for our health.
What's the story with her?
Can you hear well enough?
How old is she?
20.
Jesus Christ.
We cannot ignore the impact of stress on our society and what it's doing to people in very, very tragic ways.
In the United States, life expectancy is dropping faster than any other developed demographic in the world.
We're drinking more. We have a massive obesity epidemic and uncontrollable chronic stress.
Liver cirrhosis, drug overdose, and suicide. They are called deaths of despair.
Knowing the cause of the cause is far more important to really understand what's happening.
Stress is an epidemic of monstrous proportions.
What's the surest way to make our have-nots feel poor? Put them in a lot of income inequity.
Not only do you feel helpless, you feel rage.
It just seemed like we didn't matter.
People have this ideology that competition is good for you, but that's a trick.
Could it be that a society gets so stressed out that it actually starts to break?
I highly recommend this documentary. I cannot underemphasize it, or at least get a good shot at it. Now, part of the reason that stress impacts us so much is that from an evolutionary standpoint, our bodies are still the same bodies that they were when we were wandering the plains, when we would go through the plains and a lion would sneak up into us and we would have to react super fast to either fight the lion or run away from the lion because otherwise we were going to be dinner. Our bodies react in the same way to modern day stress because our bodies haven't really changed. So in our brain, our sympathetic nervous system triggers our freeze, fight, or flight reaction. And this happens even with any bit of stress. This releases our stress hormones like epinephrine, cortisol, and adrenaline. Our blood vessels in our arms and legs dilate in preparation for freeze, fight, or flight. And our chronic stress can cause our nervous system to be in a constant state of activation. Now, the way I explain this to my students is in your brain, you have something that's kind of like the top floor and the bottom floor, right? The top floor is where your prefrontal cortex is, and that's where all of your decision making, that's where you make your best decisions. The bottom floor is just as important as the top floor. That's our subconscious. Our subconscious is responsible for things like keeping us from running into things, a ton of information at all times. Now, when we have even a tiny bit of stress, the subconscious in the bottom floor kind of pulls a ladder to the top floor. The subconscious takes over because it thinks that there's a threat to our life and we need to respond quickly and angrily to be able to take care of that. That means we can't hear our prefrontal cortex that's trying to tell us how to make our best decisions. The ladder's down and the prefrontal cortex is not communicating with the part of our brain that's in control. So our prefrontal cortex gets the ladder pulled on it, it's offline with even mild stress. Chronic stress can actually cause the synapses to wither and atrophy between your neurons. So those neurons that help you make decisions, if you're always stressed out, they start to wither. It strengthens the emotional and reactive parts of our brain. So that bottom floor brains are kind of like a muscle that the parts we use more get stronger and faster. So always stressed out, that bottom part of our brain is getting stronger and faster. And that leads to more fear, more anger, and more cravings. In fact, a lot of the things that we think of as fear or as anger are actually fear responses, like and yelling, all that. That's actually a fear response. And it's really, really bad for our bodies to be in for more than a minute or two, which is how we're normally intended to be in that state. Stress hormones also impair empathy. That's because you don't want to be as sympathetic to other people because you're trying to survive. Oh no, someone says I'm freezing. Am I okay now? Melissa, can you hear me?
Yes, you come and go, like mostly you're in, so you're okay. I thought maybe it was my computer freezing, so I'll let you know if it happens again.
Okay, should I try to hook up to a hotspot or am I okay mostly?
Go ahead and try the hotspot. Yeah.
I'm sorry, what?
Go ahead and try the hotspot.
Okay, give me just a second. If it's appear, I will be right back, but I want to at least try the hotspot. 30 seconds, please. Right. Just one moment. I should be good. Can you see my screen now?
Yes.
Can you hear me fine now?
Yep.
All right. Hotspot for the win. Do I need to rewind at all? Okay. All right. We're going to keep going. So hormones released are our freeze, flight, or fight response, which increase sugar in our bloodstream to give us energy. Constant stress and high blood sugar could actually lead to diabetes in some people. Our stress hormones impair empathy. We don't want to be empathetic to other people if we're trying to survive. These are all survival things. And managing stress can control blood sugar almost as much as medicine in some, not all cases. What happens with our hearts? Our heart beats faster, our blood pressure rises, and this is all to get us ready again for fight or flight. Inflammation, this causes inflammation in our circulatory system, and inflammation throughout our body is the root of a lot of modern disease. And this puts us at increased risk for hypertension, heart attack, or stroke. In addition, see this picture on the slide? How many of you do that when you're stressed out? I know I do that all the time when I'm stressed out. That's because, our muscles are tensing in preparation for fight or flight. We need to do something extreme, so we're all getting tensed up. Long-term stress can also cause constant neck and shoulder pain that probably contributed quite a bit to the migraines I used to have. Chronic muscle pain, as the next point says, can lead to tension headaches and migraines, and they are no joke. Breathing. Our breath speeds up in preparation for fight or flight. It can cause problems, especially if you're already an asthma or allergy suffer, and it helps our body maintain its sense of alarm. But that's also going to help us. We'll talk about why in just a minute. Now, I'm about to do something slightly mean. I'm going to try to stress you out just a little bit, but it's only because I want to show you how you can calm yourself back down. All right, here we go. So this is something that always stresses me out, is the start of the school year. New students, because you don't know who you're going to get, and I usually had about 1,000 students, a room to prepare, supplies to order, curriculum to plan, a pre-test to give. I'm getting stressed out just thinking about it. Website to repair, open house packets and syllabus, books to level, Instagram and Pinterest to make you feel like you have way more to do. And my least favorite of all, when the copy machine jams seconds before class. Nothing stresses me out more at school than like, I got this great idea and I totally have time to do it, and then the copy machine jams. Okay. So if you're like me, your shoulders might be a little bit tense. You might be breathing a little faster. That's how I feel. Here is what we can do to take ourselves from this, which I'm telling myself to put my shoulders, this, to this. One of the best things we can do to take ourselves out of that stress state is deep breathing, because just like our brain communicates with our body communicates with our brain. So if our brain is speeding up our heart rate and speeding up our breathing, and we consciously slow our breathing down, it slows our heart rate down, and it sends a message to our brain that it's okay. We can chill out. We don't need to be stressed out. So I'm going to teach you 2 of my favorite breathing techniques, and one you can do even if you only have like 20 seconds before you go talk to that kid that's stressing you out, and one you can do if you have a little bit more time. It's free, obviously, because it's breathing, and it's brain-body communication. So breath number 1, this is the one I use the most. I even use it like if I'm on a car ride and my kids are in the backseat fighting, like, she touched me, he looked out my window, that kind of thing. That I'm like, okay. So you can do this between classes. You can do this everywhere you need. All you're going to do, we are going to do 2 rounds together, is you're going to breathe in through your nose for 4. You're going to hold your breath for 7. And you're going to breathe out long and slow through your mouth for 8. Now, these are not like shallow breaths. These are kind of like more like deep breaths. So put your hand on your stomach and take a deep breath in for your nose. You should feel your stomach lift up underneath your hand. So that's, you can let it out. You want that stomach to fill up with air. So we're going to try it. And if you cannot quite hold your breath for the full 7 or blow out for the full 8, that's totally fine to do whatever is comfortable for you. Okay, 2 rounds. Here we go. In through your nose. Inhale. 1, 2, 3, 4. Hold it. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Exhale slow through the mouth. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. I will do this with my students. We're going to do it one more round like I do in class. Inhala, inhale por la nariz to the nose. 1, 2, 3, 4. Espera, hold. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Out low and slow to the mouth. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. I hope that right now in your body, you are feeling a lot calmer. I feel calmer, and all I did was read it to you. I do this in class if the students come in and they're kind of worked up, or after a crazy activity, or when they just done a test and they're all stressed out. It totally resets the mood and puts everyone kind of in this space, which we all of us need. The second breath, I would recommend you do this one on your own at home. And the reason I say that is because this one's kind of for dealing with like deeper emotions. We tend to, as a society, take the things that are bothering us, I know I do, and like ball them up in a little ball and like push them down into our stomach and ignore them, right? But those things being like held into our stomach, our bodies are still experiencing the stress from that. So this is one to kind of release it. And it's for when you're really, really stressed out about something. And I recommend doing this one on your own in a safe space, only because sometimes it leads to like really deep emotions coming out when you're done. And all you're going to do is another deep breath in through the nose. And then you clench your fists and you close your eyes and you let yourself actually feel that emotion. So like if you're stressed out about money, if you're stressed out about getting your schoolwork done, if you're stressed out about something at home, instead of like pushing it down in your stomach so you don't have to feel it, actually let yourself fully feel that emotion and feel it and hold your breath for as long as you can until it's comfortable, and then breathe it all out. And then you do it again. You take a deep breath in, clench your fist, and then let yourself fully feel that feeling and feel it till like you can't let it feel anymore. And then you let it all out. And I will do this one over the course of like 10 minutes. And what you'll find is that every time you take a deep breath in and clench your fists, what you will actually find is that that strong emotion you're feeling, it's less and it's less and it's less. Sometimes just the fact of recognizing it and confronting it helps you let it go a little bit. So that's my other deep breathing technique for, you know, when you have something that the 4-7-8 breathing is not going to help you with. Okay, so hopefully go ahead and take a little self-check, and I'm not going to make you talk on the webinar because I know nobody wants to talk on a webinar because it's kind of awkward sometimes to like make yourself speak up. And I'm not going to make you get your effective filters that way, but check in with your breathing right now. How does your breathing feel? How do your muscles feel? Your heart rate, your mood? That's something you should always be monitoring. When you feel your heart rate start to speed up, when you feel your shoulders start to clench, when you feel yourself start to breathe faster, those are signs that you're experiencing stress. Those are signs it's time to take a deep breath and give yourself a minute. So that's my kind of talk on breathing. And if that seems too complicated, there's an app for that. Now, these are all Android apps because I have an Android and not an iPhone, but you can just look up. This is like just an app where there's a candle that goes for 5 minutes. This one has nature sounds in the background, and this one has a phrase you can meditate on. But if you just do like a breathing app on your phone, and these are all free ones. There's tons and tons of free ones that can help you take that moment, if that will help you. Anyone need questions before I kind of dive into the next part? Because I feel like I'm going a little fast. All right. I'm going to go. If you have a question, you can throw it in the chat or speak up, but I'm going to keep going because I don't want to waste any of our time. Another trick for if you are having a hard time sleeping, this yoga nidra is just yoga sleep. And what it does is the person talks you through like concentrate on your left thumb. Now feel your left pointer finger, and now feel your left middle finger. And so you start concentrating on different parts of your body, just one part at a time. It's about a 15-minute walkthrough. I actually did this with teachers at a wellness seminar I gave at my school, and I had about 4 teachers pass out on the floor of my classroom, like they were just snoring because they just fell right asleep. And they said it was the best, PD they'd ever had because they got to take a little nap. But this is a really great way, like if your brain is just not turning off, just like YouTube it. This is just free, Yoga Nidra, and it kind of just walks you through a whole body, like calm down, that helps you get out of your brain. Because I just know, especially at the end of a long school day, sometimes my brain is just going and going and going and going, and it can't stop. I love Liliana said in the chat that they started using mindfulness with students 2 to 3 times a week, and it's huge. I have done that as well. Okay. We are going to get into community and why it is important with Rosetta Story, an anatomy of health, not Rosetta Stone, but Rosetto. Okay, so there was this town called Rosetto. In the 1960s, they had zero heart attacks in anyone under 55. And in the 1960s, this is when, heart disease is still the leading cause of death, but like this one, it was when it was like at its highest, and they had none. The death rate for men over 65 was half the national average. And you're going to notice I keep quoting men when I'm talking about this, and that's because they were not monitoring the women in the 1960s in this town. They were just studying the men. Dr. Stewart tested, so this is the doctor who went and like analyzed this town, and he looked at diet, location, family history, and exercise. Someone's already got it in the chat, and he found that it was all the same. Here are the demographics. And someone already has in the chat, gracias, what the trick was. But go ahead and look over the demographics and see if you can figure out what was it that made their town so healthy. They were Italian immigrants. Most of them worked in quarries or factories. They ate rich family meals. They smoked unfiltered cigarettes. They played cards till late in the night. 3 generations usually lived under one roof, and 80% of men were in at least one community group. And I'm going to, if you have not already guessed it, Vincenzo guessed it in the chat, it's community. Community is huge. Like they said in that first video, we are meant to be a communal species. We are meant to help each other. We got as far as we did by helping each other. And it was the community. It was the 3 families under one roof, so helping each other. It was the late night cards. It was the community groups. That was what made this town so healthy. In the 80s, the wealth increased in the town, everyone moved out into their own homes, fences went up, people got on technology more, and the heart attack and death rate rose to be with the rest of the nation. they lost their community, and they lost those health benefits. So finding your community is huge. You cannot underestimate the power of going out with your friends and being with people that you love. And I already talked about that. It's the community. It's huge. Kind of gives me chills. We are social animals and are happiest and healthiest when we work together and support each other. Okay. Another little trick you can do to kind of help yourself be calm is just to get outside. Being outside is so good for us. This is called forest bathing. Spending time in forests, hiking in mountains, and just being outside can lead to significant health benefits. Studies have shown that walking in the woods can improve blood pressure, boost mental health, and decrease cancer risk. So go spend some time forest bathing to improve your health. Nothing to do here, just walk outside. And I think they actually found that it capped out at like 2 hours a week, which I don't know why that weird number, but if you can get yourself out at 2 hours a week and it can be 20 minutes here and 20 minutes there, it can actually improve your health. Okay, sleep. This is the hardest one for me to get enough of, but I really cannot stop reminding myself enough how important sleep is. And this video does an excellent job of explaining it. So I'm just gonna let the video explain it for you. One of my favorites.
In 1965, 17-year-old high school student Randy Garner stayed awake for 264 hours. That's 11 days to see how he'd cope without sleep. On the second day, his eyes stopped focusing. Next, he lost the ability to identify objects by touch. By day 3, Garner was moody and uncoordinated. At the end of the experiment, he was struggling to concentrate, had trouble with short-term memory, became paranoid, and started hallucinating. Although Garner recovered without long-term psychological or physical damage, for others, losing shut-eye can result in hormonal imbalance, illness, and in extreme cases, death. We're only beginning to understand why we sleep to begin with, but we do know it's essential. Adults need 7 to 8 hours of sleep a night, and adolescents need about 10. We grow sleepy due to signals from our body telling our brain we are tired, and signals from the environment telling us it's dark outside. The rise in sleep-inducing chemicals like adenosine and melatonin send us into a light doze that grows deeper, making our breathing and heart rate slow down and our muscles relax. This non-REM sleep is when DNA is repaired and our bodies replenish themselves for the day ahead. In the United States, it's estimated that 30% of adults and 66% of adolescents are regularly sleeping.
Someone said there's no sound with the video.
I can hear it fine.
It's fine. I can hear it fine.
Okay, I am going to, just so everyone knows, I'm going to release a brief PowerPoint. Every video I am showing you today is in the PowerPoint. So if you can't hear it now, you can always watch it later on your own.
Deprived. This isn't just a minor inconvenience. Staying awake can cause serious bodily harm. When we lose sleep, learning, memory, mood, and reaction time are affected. Sleeplessness may also cause inflammation, hallucinations, high blood pressure, and it's even been linked to diabetes and obesity. In 2014, a devoted soccer fan died after staying awake for 48 hours to watch the World Cup. While his untimely death was due to a stroke, studies show that chronically sleeping fewer than 6 hours a night increases stroke risk by 4.5 times compared to those getting a consistent 7 to 8 hours of shut-eye. For a handful of people on the planet who carry a rare inherited genetic mutation, sleeplessness is a daily reality. This condition, known as fatal familial insomnia, places the body in a nightmarish state of wakefulness, forbidding it from entering the sanctuary of sleep. Within months or years, this progressively worsening condition leads to dementia and death. How can sleep deprivation cause such immense suffering? Scientists think the answer lies with the accumulation of waste products
you have
in
foggy
the brain.
brain.
During our waking hours, our cells are busy using up our day's energy sources, which get broken down into various byproducts, including adenosine. As adenosine builds up, it increases the urge to sleep, also known as sleep pressure. In fact, caffeine works by blocking adenosine's receptor pathways. Other waste products also build up in the brain, and if they're not cleared away, they collectively overload the brain, and are thought to lead to the many negative symptoms of sleep deprivation. So what's happening in our brain when we sleep to prevent this? Scientists found something called the glymphatic system, a cleanup mechanism that removes this buildup and is much more active when we're asleep. It works by using cerebrospinal fluid to flush away toxic byproducts that accumulate between cells. Lymphatic vessels, which serve as pathways for immune cells, have recently been discovered in the brain, and they may also play a role in clearing out the brain's daily waste products. While scientists continue exploring the restorative mechanisms behind sleep, we can be sure that slipping into slumber is a necessity if we want to maintain our health and our sanity.
So I will tell you all honestly that sleeping enough is one of the hardest things for me to do for my own health, but it is critical. So next time you're not sure if you should sleep or drink more coffee, the right answer, if you can do it, is to sleep, because not only does our brain make connections, categorize, and consolidate memories, it also builds up all those chemicals in the brain, which is why we feel so tired when we don't sleep and our brain's all foggy. Those chemicals are just continuing to build up. Our DNA is repaired, and when our DNA is not repaired, that can lead to all sorts of diseases, very, very important, and it regulates our hormones, repairs tissue, and restores energy. Critical. So always sleep more, and I actually even make my own children watch that video when they complain about going to bed sometimes, and then they stop complaining. So how can we get some Z's? If you are a Seinfeld fan, you might recognize the napping desk, which is what I have there. But if you do not have the chance to nap under a desk at work, there are a few things we can do to help improve our sleep. One of those things is your phone probably has a do not disturb function somewhere on it. I know if I'm at night and I get like an email from the principal or from a parent, it's like next to impossible for me to not look at it or not respond to it. So I have to put the do not disturb on my phone, which only allows like certain family members to get through, and then you don't get more notifications. That just gives yourself a real chance to disconnect. I know it's hard, but screens can actually make it harder for us to fall asleep. So if you find yourself continuously like watching TV all night, those blue lights on the screen wake up your brain. So you might be better off trying to read by a soft light if your brain is having a hard time in the regular falling asleep. Reading before bed, like I just said. Having a bedtime ritual. Our brains really like patterns, and they like to predict what we're going to do. So if you do the same thing in the same exact order every night, and then let's say you say, I brush my teeth, I read for 30 minutes, I stretch, I go to bed. And those are the 4 things to do that same exact order every single night. Your brain will come to predict that the next thing after stretching is going to bed. And it will start to prepare you to be sleepy in like preparation for that pattern. That was actually when I was trying to get my own children to sleep regularly when they were little and 2 and getting out of bed all the time. That was the most helpful thing for me keeping them in bed, was doing the exact same thing every night so that their brains came to expect that sleep was the next thing on the list. Daily exercise, and that can be any form of joyful movement, but it helps get rid of some of that extra energy that might keep you up at night. Making sure your room is not too warm. The right temperature kind of varies from person to person, but 60 to 67 degrees tends to be the magic area. And then yoga nidra, like I just showed you, that yoga sleep where they walk you through concentrating on each part of your body, will kind of get you out of your head if your head is really spinning. And if your brain happens to do this, which mine often does just as I am falling asleep, gives me the bestest ideas ever. Keeping a small little notebook next to your bed that you can write it in is a really great idea, because if you turn on that phone to write it down again, you're getting the lights and it's waking your brain back up. This is totally me a lot of nights. Okay, now, all of that being said about the importance of sleep, if there are ever times when you just don't have enough sleep, but you really, really, really need to do something important, there is a little hack you can do, and it's called a coffee nap. I found this quite fascinating. Don't do this regularly. It's bad for you.
If you're feeling sleepy and you need a jolt of energy, there's something you should try. It's more effective than drinking coffee or taking a nap. It's drinking coffee and then taking a nap.
It's called a coffee nap. It might sound kind of crazy because most people realize that caffeine interferes with sleep, but it takes a little while for the caffeine to affect you. The caffeine has to go into your small intestine, pass into your bloodstream, and enter your brain. And that takes about 20 minutes.
If you spend those 20 minutes unconscious, you're gonna wake up feeling pretty great. And to understand why, it helps to know what's making you feel groggy in the first place.
So there's a molecule inside your brain called adenosine, and it plugs into little receptors inside your brain cells and makes you feel tired.
Adenosine is a byproduct of brain activity, so it builds up through the day and starts to slow down your neurons.
Caffeine chemically looks a whole lot like adenosine, and when you ingest caffeine and it enters your brain, it blocks adenosine from fitting into those receptors. A lot of people have said that this is like taking a car and putting a block of wood underneath the brake pedals.
Caffeine keeps your brain from slowing itself down.
The great thing about coffee naps is that sleep naturally clears out adenosine from the brain. So the caffeine doesn't even need to compete with the adenosine to fit into those receptors.
So what's the evidence that this really works?
There's not a huge body of work, but there are a few different studies. When people took a 15-minute coffee nap, they went on to commit fewer errors in a driving simulator than when they only drank coffee or only took a nap.
As the test subjects were doing this really boring driving simulation, they were asked every 3 minutes to report their sleepiness level. And the coffee nap group was consistently more alert.
Meanwhile, a Japanese study found that people who took a caffeine nap performed a lot better on a series of memory tests.
The challenge of the coffee nap is to time it just right.
You want to drink it quickly, so maybe you can do espresso shots or iced coffee if that makes it easier. And then set an alarm before you fall asleep to wake up within 20 minutes. Because if you nap too long, you're much more likely to enter deeper stages of sleep, and you'll have what scientists call sleep inertia, which is basically grogginess.
If you have trouble falling asleep that quickly, the studies found that you can still benefit from the coffee nap.
Even just drinking the caffeine and getting a few minutes of restful half sleep, half awakeness is going to make you feel more alert when you do get up 20 minutes later.
So that's just a little hack for you, because I know sometimes teachers are desperate, though I do not recommend using it on a regular basis for like emergencies like conferences. Sitting is more dangerous than smoking, kills more people than HIV, and is more treacherous than parachuting. We are sitting ourselves to death. And this is Dr. James Levine, director of the Mayo Clinic, Arizona State University. And even getting yourself, so we're going to go kind of quick because I'm like, oh, I love that you're the nap queen. I love naps. I love naps too. I'm going to go really quickly through the movement section because I want to get to the nutrition section. But the essential part of the movement section is just get yourself moving. Do something that you find joyful. It just has to be something you actually enjoy, and get yourself moving, because we spend more time moving naturally than we would in our natural environment. And my joke here is your yoga does not need to look like this if yoga is the kind of movement you need to do. My yoga actually usually looks like this. It's classroom yoga, like in front of my desk for like 2 minutes. Yoga is one of my favorite ways to get moving because it increases strength and flexibility. It gets you out of your mind and into your body. Usually you can combine it with deep breathing. So that kind of gets your breathing calmed down, and it can be done in the target language. Obviously, be careful if you have injuries. We're not going to take the time to do all of these right now. I am going to release a whole series of kind of like in this presentation, these are like office yoga slides, I would tell you. So these are a few yoga moves you can do at your desk safely without students around, just like a simple twist to kind of keep your body stretched out during the day. So right now, we'll just do this one. And don't do it if you have a bad back. But all you have to do here, we're just going to do this one, is you take one arm and you put on the back of your chair, and then take your other leg and you turn and twist your body just like in that picture. Go ahead and take 3 deep breaths. 1, 2, 3, and go ahead and release. And then we're going to go back the other way. Put one arm behind your chair, other one on your leg, and go ahead and twist. Take 3 deep breaths. 1, 2, 3. Release and turn back. Now, what worked best for me was to have like, these are the 4 yoga poses I did every morning for like 10 minutes before the day started. And there were 10 that I did at lunch, or I'm sorry, like 3 I did at lunch in my room, and like 3 I did at the end of the day. And just having those and knowing these are times I'm going to stop and stretch out was a really great way for me to start taking back my flexibility and getting into my body. All of these are, again, yoga moves that are easy to do in the classroom with your door shut without anyone looking at you like you're crazy. And all of these are going to come to you, and excuse the messy classroom behind me, of course, in the slides that I'm going to share with you at the end of the presentation. Now, I will tell you, when I first started doing yoga, I would just do 3 breaths at a time. and I hold the pose for 3 breaths, and that's all I did. And then when it got easier, I did it for 4 breaths. And when it got easier, I did it for 5 breaths. And now I hold every pose for 22 breaths. But it was never like I was like trying to hold it for 22 breaths and shaking, and like it was just like I was just gradually increasing more as my body told me I could do more. There's no need to like push yourself to be like go beast mode for yoga for workouts. Just like listen to your body and do what's comfortable. And these are a little bit more advanced yoga poses that you can do. And again, this is coming to you at the end of the presentation. You can stay home with you. The key thing to keeping yourself moving is choosing movement you enjoy, which is different for everyone. For me, these are some of the things I like to do that were things I could easily sneak into my teacher day. Taking the stairs 2 at a time. That's a great way to work out different muscles and get your legs moving in a different way. A dance party, a 30-second dance party with your kids or with your family. Another great way to get yourself moving quickly. I would oftentimes in class, if the kids needed a brain break, stand up and I would say, okay, someone pick a number between 10 and 20 in the target language. Whatever number that was, we were going to do that many jumping jacks. And we count all in the target language and we do it all as a class. You can build, you don't have to get up at like 4 in the morning to work out. You can build it into your day. I also like to do sprints with my kids or on the playground, but I don't really call them sprints. I'll be like, hey, I raced you to that tree, and I'll race with the kids or my own children. They love it and it keeps you healthy. And I like to walk. And then when I'm like bending down to help students, I always squat instead of bend over because it's better for your back. And then it's a way to work on your leg muscles while you're at work without having to build in some extra routines. My new favorite way to work out right now is a VR fitness program where I you can see the picture right there. It's not me, where I smash like bats to music. And it's just a great way to get rid of stress. There's no wrong way to move. The wrong way is a way that you don't enjoy. Find something you enjoy that you can do on a regular basis, and that's going to be a winner for you. Okay. The biggest part is the diet part, the you are what you eat. This had such a huge impact on my health. And this is the kind of the closing to the presentation. Also, I think one of the most important parts. And I will tell all of you that when I did all of the things I told you in this presentation, not only did I lose a ton of weight, but I went from filling my migraine prescription every single month to going 3 months without filling it. The weight was kind of a byproduct, that like the getting rid of my migraines was the reason I started doing it. And it was huge. So let me talk to you about what happens when we eat stuff. Or I'm gonna let the video talk for me. I also show my children this one. Not students, children.
Is it true that you are what you eat? The phrase you often hear, you are what you eat, has been a core belief in many cultures throughout history. The ancient Aztecs would eat the brain of their rivals because they believed it gave them the wisdom and knowledge of their enemies. In India, some cultures do not eat onion and garlic as they believe foods with strong odors led to aggressive and offensive behaviors. The Nordic Vikings believed that drinking the blood of a bear or wolf before battle gave them the ferocity of the animal they drank. In China, there is a high demand for tiger penis because men there believe eating it will boost libido and cure erectile dysfunction. Around the world and throughout history, we see fascinating and bizarre examples of traditions that center around the idea that you embody what you eat. Today, most of these mythical beliefs have faded away, but there is still much validity to the phrase, you are what you eat. So what exactly does this phrase mean? Today, Health Chronicle will help explain that to us. Considering the thousands of pages of highfalutin academic and philosophical discourse written on the topic, the meaning of the phrase is pretty simple. If you eat crappy food, you're going to feel crappy. If you eat healthy food, then you will feel and look healthy. You are what you put into your body. Now let's take the crux of this you are what you eat message and look at it more closely, through a scientific lens. What you eat determines even the composition of your cellular membranes. That's right, all the way down to the tiniest building blocks of your entire body. Those little blocks that build your bones, your organs, your muscles, and your brain, you are what you eat. Then consider this. The average adult loses around 300 billion cells to old age every single day. How does their body replace those cells? With the food we eat, literally. That food becomes the fuel for our body's own manufacturing plant to replace cells that die. When we eat toxic, chemically laden, nutritionless food, our bodies have a hard time manufacturing new, healthy cells. It would be like giving a man a blunt hammer in the middle of a desert and asking him to build a massive castle. Or filling a race car gas tank with sand and expecting it to win. Our bodies carry out billions of functions every second with those cells. Thus, another popular phrase that our bodies are a temple. Only instead of putting clean fuel in the machine, we put in excrement and expect this machine to make a masterpiece. Though our body is infinitely intelligent and even figures out how to replace our cells to some extent despite our poor food choices, it can only improvise on the making of a masterpiece for so long before it runs out of ideas. Eventually, eating processed junk food will lead to your cells becoming processed junk. Genetically modified food equals a genetically modified you. So, drink clean water, eat more fresh vegetables, fruits, nuts, and seeds. Allow your digestive system to work as it should by reducing chronic inflammation with a better diet and consistent, moderate exercise, and you'll even be able to extract more of the good stuff out of your food. Your body will also be able to dump the bad stuff with more ease. In brief, you are what you eat. More than 300 billion cells depend on the fuel you give your body. Make sure you give it the good stuff.
Exactly. I don't know if you caught that before the video, but I've made my own children, not my students, but my own children watch this video too. Our cells are literally made of what we eat. So what we put into our cells has a large impact on what our bodies are made of. So what exactly is a healthy meal? This is my most succinct description of healthy food that I found. It was by Michael Pollan. Eat food, like real food, not too much, mostly plants. If we're going to kind of pull that out a little bit, eat a variety of non-processed, mostly plant-based food with nutritional value. You don't have to count calories. You don't have to write down everything you eat or put into your mouth. You just need to eat mostly good food with nutritional value, mostly a variety of plant-based food, and you will be healthy. So from like a realistic standpoint, what does that look like? In my house, we typically have 2 to 3 vegetables with a meal. We'll have a healthy fat, often avocado, olive oil, or coconut oil. We'll have a palm-sized portion of a healthy protein, and we'll have some fruit. No one's going hungry. We're eating lots and lots of food. It's just all food that our bodies can use. I'm going to play the sugar video at the very end if we have time. I just want to give you a little bit more about the food. It just basically tells you that just as important as good food is avoiding sugar, because sugar is really bad for you. I'm going to come right back to that in just a minute. Sugar is also very addictive in addition to being really bad for you, and it does all sorts of things, including it actually can block blood flow to certain parts of your brain. And then the other scary thing that sugar does is it can bind to our RNA. Our RNA is what copies our DNA. And when sugar binds to the RNA, it can mutate the DNA that it copies. So sugar is very bad for you. And unfortunately, it's also addictive. What I recommend to get rid of sugar if you can, and I'm not talking about sugars like in fruit, I'm talking about added sugars like in candy bars. If you can, I highly recommend getting the sugar out of the house for 30 days, not forever. I like my cookies, I like my ice cream, I'm not talking forever, but if you can get it out of the house for 30 days and replace it with water and nuts and as much fruit as you want, then what will happen is your body will sort of reset itself. And when you start eating sugar again, it will taste a lot sugary, like more sugary to you, and you won't need as much to be satisfied. It kind of helps reset to your body. I'm not talking about fruit, I'm talking about added sugar. So what I have found for me is if I eat healthy 6 days a week, once a week, I can eat like pasta and have a Ben & Jerry's ice cream or a big plate of cake, and I still feel great. If I start cheating on my diet more than that, like if I'm eating pasta 4 days a week and desserts 4 days a week because it's the holidays, I'll start to feel bad again. So that's kind of the balance that worked for me between healthy food and non-healthy food, was eating healthy like 5 or 6 days a week and then having a day off where I don't worry about it as much. With that balance, I don't get headaches. I feel great all the time. I have tons of energy. I'm generally very healthy. My recommendation for you is to cut all of the food that makes you feel sick for 30 days and then slowly add it back in and see what the right balance is for your body, because everyone's body is unique unto themselves. And some tricks to make it easy are to pre-cook what you can. To make big meals, I love leftovers. So if I'm making a pan of sweet potatoes, I'll make like 3 pans of sweet potatoes so we can have leftovers for days. During the school week, I love to do mason jars salads. And if you can make these on Sunday. If you put dressing in the bottom, your heavier vegetables on top of it, and then your salad greens, they can sit in your fridge all week, and then you can just shake them up and eat them when you're ready. Those are kind of some tricks to shortcuts to a healthy diet, rather. I would also recommend, if you are not a chef, that you take a moment. Like when I started cooking healthy, I had to do things like look up how to cut an onion the right way, look up how to cut garlic the right way, which I know seems probably silly if you are a chef, but I hadn't learned those things, and taking some time to learn how to cut your vegetables and your fruits the right way will save you hours and hours in the kitchen, which is always nice. And if you are looking for a cheat night because you just don't have the energy to cook, I highly recommend going to your local grocery store and buying a pre-cooked chicken, maybe some guacamole, make sure there's no sugar in it that's added, and maybe some fruit or veggies. That's kind of a shortcut for a night out. Leftovers are the best thing ever. Make large portions. I told you I do 3 trays of sweet potatoes, and I do. We're going to have to skip the sugar slides and the water slides, but I think you got the most critical parts of the presentation. I want to leave you just a couple little thoughts. One day soon, we're going to have a conversation about how the term self-care is currently being weaponized against teachers. No amount of yoga or massages will fix this. Educators are operating in full crisis mode and need structural changes from the top. At no point tonight was I trying to say that this will fix everything for you, but this will at least set you on the right path to retaking some of your health. Whether it's you just get an extra hour of sleep at night, or you decide that you're going to do something fun with your kids, some fun movement, or go take a walk in the forest, or make sure you drink some extra water. If you make some tiny changes, I hope that your health will reward you. Remember, it's easy to always want to show up for everyone else, but it's really important to show up for yourself as well, especially as teachers. We love to show up for other people, but we can't really show up for other people if we don't show up for ourselves. Please take care of yourself. You are very special. You are very needed. If you need me, all of my information is here. I am always happy to talk anything teacher related. The slides from this presentation as well as the video will be up on our website soon, and we will send it out to all of you. Thank you so much for spending your time with me. I really appreciate it, and I hope that you found at least one thing that will make your life a little bit easier tonight. Melissa, you want to wrap it up for us?
Yes, thank you, Erica, for such an amazing presentation. There was so much great information in there and so much that we can take with us. So thank you so much for that. I'm going to go ahead and stop recording now.